It's the last Friday in the shortest month of February. And we're 2 weeks away from daylight savings times. It's all good times. We were 60 some degrees the other day. I got to run 6 miles. It was awesome. So we are joined this Friday with our regular doctors. They've got our visiting doctor, Dr. Chris Tomlinson from Carroll County, the county with real, regular, everyday Americans in the state of Maryland, home to Western Maryland College. And we are also joined by alumni from Western Maryland College, Dr. Brian Griffiths.
And by the way,
Brian Griffiths.
meteorological spring starts on Monday.
Yes, I know. Yes, I do. Yeah, I watched Bob Ryan growing up as a kid. I know that.
Hey, I am National Weather Service certified now. Skywarn
Really?
certified now. Yeah.
Really?
I am.
Congratulations. And Dr. Brian Griffiths is our answer to Andy Rooney. So at the end of the show, he's going to give us his take on Andy Rooney.
You know what I've been thinking about?
What's that? The things that make you mad.
I've been thinking about parking tickets.
Why don't you hear?
Anybody born after 1986 doesn't understand that.
I mean, I think Jason got that Andy Rooney reference.
Nope. I got no idea. I'm
I used to watch. We used to watch it. We used to like visit my grandparents on Sunday nights, and we'd watch 60 Minutes when I was like 7. It probably explains a lot about how I turned out.
I mean, I know who Andy Rooney is, but I'm not picking up on the impersonation.
It's not very good, so it doesn't matter.
And 60 Minutes is the perfect segue to Dr. Don Irvine, media watchdog extraordinaire. They exposed 60 Minutes in the Westmoreland interview with his organization, Actors in Academia and Accuracy in Media. That is organization his dad, Reed Irvine, founded. Welcome, Don.
Welcome, Dwight. Geez, I thought Western Maryland College was called something else.
We don't talk about that.
I think
it never happened.
The college has no name.
Figment of my imagination.
Never happened.
And then we're joined by renowned security expert Jeffrey Thornton, one of the original founders of the very first TAR chapter in the great state of Maryland back in 1987.
89.
We actually had it go before you were a freshman. I think we started your freshman year, so that would be like 87 or something. So yeah, and Jeff, we went to the Bush inaugural, a very cold day. It's not the day you give Cece your jacket because she's cold and, well, because she didn't bring her jacket. But that's another story. So, welcome everyone. It's been a busy week. CPAC was this week. We've had a bunch of stuff going on. We had an airstrike on Syria. First thing that came to mind, is there a Hunter Biden story that's breaking tomorrow or something? Is that why we bombed Syria yesterday?
Well, let's start off with the CPAC thing because I think it's perfect. We've got Brian on, so I know he'll have some comments about that. He wrote a good piece for the Duck Pin about CPAC and how he feels about CPAC and the relevance or the value of that. But I think Brian, you're pretty spot on here on that in that article because CPAC has just changed. I mean, it is a very different animal right now than it used to be. I mean, you brought up an interesting point too, is that will ever they return to DC after going to Florida? I haven't thought about that, but it makes perfect sense to me that they won't come back here to this area. So talk about what you wrote about a little bit.
Well, I talked about kind of the debasing of CPAC over the years and how, it was kind of once the conservative Woodstock and now it's kind of become the conservative Fire Festival. Just you start looking at the speakers, you start looking at everybody who is there. Don't get me wrong. There's been a kind of an element to that the last 10 years or so where you wind up with a lot of people who are going there to. It's less about policy. It's less about Republicans and conservatism. It's more an event where people just go because you're supposed to go. It's, between the people who are there to campaign for their guy, the college kids who get to go there, the parties, for a lot of them, the girls, it's almost like a Republican Rumspringa. But,
it's not a bad thing, Brian.
What's that?
Never mind.
Oh, it's become less and less, quite frankly, a must-go event. And, obviously I have a policy bias knowing that, how when you look at how this event is almost distinctively focused around the guy who just lost the election, it's not really a great focus for the conservative movement going forward. I mean, they're doing a 7-part seminar series on the stolen election, as if that hasn't been litigated to death already. It shows to me that there are certain elements in the movement which are more concerned with grievance politics and focusing on an ever smaller and smaller base than actually winning a governing majority anytime in the near future. And that's detrimental to the country, because that makes it more and more likely that Democrats will remain in power. But it's certainly detrimental to the conservative causes that we hold near and dear, because we need to have working conservative majorities in order to make those things happen and to stop things from happening if Biden were to continue in office. So, to me, CPAC has been less and less important to me over the years. I last went in 2019, notable only because Dwight made me take a picture with Scott Walker. And it's just, I'm not sure what the value added is.
And you met my nephew Shane's friend from Princeton.
I did. I actually
Riley
interviewed
Heath.
him for the show. Yes, but
Riley Heath.
I just think we're having a diminishing return on the investment that people make into CPAC, both individually and as a movement.
Yeah, so my complaint really about CPAC, I mean, I think some of the things that you've said are very valid. Is that, Accuracy Media had been attending, we had exhibited, we'd been a co-sponsor for decades, really. And it was a very, we went there because we thought there was some value to it. And then things started to really change economically, because, you went from the $2,500 co-sponsorship to the $3,500 co-sponsorship to then the $5,000 co-sponsorship. And then next thing you know, they want $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, depending on what you want to do. And I'm like, it's like, what is this event now? But you talk about how people just kind of go for, just because, everybody goes. I think there's a lot of truth to that, because I think, if you ask a lot of people why they go and what they're getting out of it, well, I got to take my picture with so-and-so, or did this or so-and-so, but there's not a lot of meat in the speeches and everything like that. It's just not really all that useful, in my opinion. I haven't gone for years, and I actually don't miss it.
It's one of the reasons that, a couple of years ago, we started the Red Maryland Leadership Conference, was kind of as almost a retort to CPAC, because we had so many Maryland people who were going there and not really doing anything of value insofar as that would talk about Maryland policy or help elect Marylanders or network with Marylanders. I think, Don, from the perspective that you're talking about the ever increasing costs of it, I think that CPAC fundamentally changed when it moved from DC proper or from Northern Virginia, and it moved to National Harbor, just based on how much everything got upsized. It was good. I mean, that was a good thing at the time, because the movement had so many people involved, and you had the opportunity, and you knew that you were going to get enough people to justify going to National Harbor. But I think a lot of things were lost in that move, because now there's so many people who can go that now it just becomes almost a free for all. Well, and everybody, like you said, Don, is there for the pictures and the party than for the policy.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I remember CPAC. I mean, I used to work for ACU, their IT director during CPAC 99 and 2000. And one thing I would like to point out is, there have been other, before your Maryland Leadership Conference, there was the Conservative Leadership Conference, which was founded by Accuracy in Media, Leadership Institute, and the Free Congress Foundation. That was your fall CPAC. Those were the good old days. You had a spring CPAC, you had a fall CPAC, right after, it was usually right after Thanksgiving, right, Don? It was like the first,
November, right. And you're right. I mean, and it was the reason that was formed was because Paul Weyrich Morton and my father felt that CPAC wasn't really doing anything about grassroots activism, it was getting away. And so, we took that on for a while, and then Morton actually took the whole thing over in the end after a few years.
And it was a great organization, great event. It was fun to have two big things. Now we have one big thing. And although North Carolina has brought back the CLC, Conservative Leadership Conference, through Civitas, great organization. Brian, if you're ever down in North Carolina, I highly recommend you go down for Civitas when they go.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. They're a good group down there.
Yeah.
But I think part of this is that, Dwight, is just, when you were working for CPAC,
$2,000 is what a co-sponsorship was.
yeah, but it was a lot smaller. We were over in Crystal City,
Crystal Gateway Marriott.
That was my first one, was 2000.
Right, and
Really?
and part of that, part of the reason that CPAC gave for moving the event was because of the number of people. They could not find a venue where they could hold that many people. I mean, they tried so many different things. I mean,
they were at the Shoreham for a while.
Omni Shoreham. I mean, in order to fit the number of people into the Omni Shoreham, and it was not a very good success, is that the exhibit hall, basically they had to close off almost the entire garage. Mm-hmm. So we would be freezing in the garage area because we're talking about a January, February event, type of a thing like that, in order to accommodate that so they could have enough ballroom space for everything else. But that was also the beginning of where they started when they were doing the straw polls. They basically said, they convinced the campaigns, people running the Romney and Brownback to go and send in droves of students to vote in the straw poll. And that was their only purpose to be there, was to vote in the straw poll to push their candidate over the top.
Which is a great economic decision by the ACU to do that, because they're going to make some bank. But what did it do to the event ultimately? And I think that's the point you're trying to make.
I'll give you credit though. I'll tell you, Matt Schlapp has really, because after David Keene had left, and then you had Al Cardenas. I think he was 2 years as chairman of ACU.
Yeah, it's probably that. It was pretty short term.
And Matt Schlapp basically has turned, because when Al Cardenas left, CPAC was not what it is today. CPAC was kind of like they weren't having the co-sponsors like they did in the past. I think a lot of problems was was it David Keene that allowed the Muslims, CARE to be co-sponsors, I believe, of the organization.
Dave took a lot. He took a lot of beating for some of the groups that they allowed in there.
Yeah, I mean, you don't bring a unindicted co-conspirator to be a co-sponsor at CPAC. Frankly, that's just my 2 cents. And Matt Schlapp has cleaned up ACU, CPAC. And he's grown CPAC. Matt Schlapp has done a great job from growing the organization, and he gets a lot of props for it. I mean, he's basically turned that ship around, and now it's like full speed ahead.
But at what cost? I mean, it's really my question. I'm not even talking about CPAC at this point. I'm talking about how ACU, CPAC kind of in general has gone from a conservative, a policy-oriented group to now a group that focuses, like unfortunately so much of the Republican Party, on the worship of one mortal man, and that is to his detriment. And I think that so much of what Trump's policy, not being conservative and being backed up by CPAC, being backed up by the ACU, is not necessarily where we want things to go.
Yeah, and I'm concerned for the movement in the general sense of that we have Trump speaking on Sunday. They said this is what he's going to be speaking about, these certain topics, but I don't believe that for a minute, because we're talking about Donald Trump. He is not going to stick to that. He's got an agenda going forward about what he wants to speak about, and full well it's going to be that. And you talk about this, 7-part series about, election fraud, all this stuff. Do we really need to be dealing with that at this point in time? I mean, the party's got some issues they have to figure out, and to me, that is just red meat for the liberal media. It's like, oh, look at CPAC. They're doing all these things. They can't get out of this mode. So, this is a problem for the Republican Party as a whole. I mean, CPAC, it's a free country. They can do whatever they want. But I think, if real conservatives have to take a hard look and say, what's the value here? And what is it, what does it do for the movement at this point in time?
Well,
hey, Brian, you and I are both pro wrestling fans. I feel like you could write a really good column doing some kind of wrestling comparison or WrestleMania comparison with CPAC. I'm going to let you run with that, all right?
I think it's going to be WrestleMania. What was it? 7 at this point is probably my biggest comparison, or 8. Take your pick.
Put Donald Trump in the ring.
That was WrestleMania 23. That's a whole different animal.
All right. I think let's go ahead and move on. Dwight mentioned this missile strike issue here. And I think that's something worth discussing for a few minutes. So we have this missile strike in Syria. It was kind of a retaliation for what happened on our base. But there's a lot of criticism going on from the left wing part of the party for the Democrats about this, as well as a lot of others about, is the Biden administration being hypocritical about this, considering what Biden and others had said before about Trump and his military policy and his policy towards Syria. So, where are we going with this? Is Biden projecting strength? Is he being hypocritical? It's kind of early in his administration to go ahead and have this military action, but what say you?
I think it's, I really, not to be, cynical, but I think there might be a shoe dropping on the Hunter Biden or the China story with the Bidens, and he's doing this to distract the same way Bill Clinton used to bomb aspirin factories when he had a bimbo eruption.
If you look at the policy, if you look at airstrikes in Syria and airstrikes in the Middle East in general, Biden is continuing the same policy Trump had, that Bush for the most part had, that Clinton had, et cetera, and so forth. Wash, rinse, repeat. We have these proportional responses that we bomb them because something happened, and then something happens because we bombed them. It's this unnecessarily cycle of proportionate response. It always makes me think back to the West Wing, where Bartlett asks, what's the value in a proportionate response? What about a disproportionate response? And sometimes I just think about that, and it reminds me why I probably should never be president.
I'm a believer of the Weinberg doctrine of using overwhelming force to basically strike fear in the hearts of the. I also believe in the doctrine of holding, basically taking out command and control and holding the public hostage. We had collateral damage when we were bombing Dresden, when we were bombing Tokyo. There was some collateral. When did Americans lose the stomach for winning a war? We could have won Vietnam if it weren't for.
Yeah, Vietnam. You got it exactly. That's the way it is. It's the fact that the administration, successive administrations, were not committed to winning Vietnam and doing what it took to win Vietnam.
And if President Nixon had a third term or a full second term, we would have won Vietnam, because
dude, we were already leaving by the time he left. I'm not sure that's a.
Remember, President Nixon is the one who built the bomber base in Thailand that we're using to expand the bombings of communist insurgents in North Vietnam.
Okay, my point being that the peace accords between the U.S. and the North Vietnamese were done by Kissinger in 1973, which is long before Nixon left office.
Not too much longer. He had
long enough. I understand that we didn't finally leave until April 30th, 1975, but that ship had already kind of started to sail long before Nixon resigned.
No, but my point is, if President Nixon won the 1960 presidential election, Vietnam would have turned out very differently than the way John Kennedy did it. John Kennedy botched that from day one. You do these incremental buildups, sending out, I think, 6,000 troops he sent in first as advisors. He would pick the wrong side. Diem was a ethically challenged, a wannabe tin horn dictator in South Vietnam. Frankly, we should have picked a better horse there. Diem was not, and then we propped up Diem.
Well, the U.S. is very well known for picking the right horse in foreign conflicts when it comes to installing government. We've got a great track record on that.
I thought we picked a good horse in Chile, Augusto Pinochet.
God help me.
Our guy, Ferdinand Marcos. Yeah.
Well, Dwight, you mentioned about when do we lose our appetite, but even with our 4 years of President Trump, he took, traditionally Republican presidents are thought of as being hawkish and everything, but Trump, since the very beginning, as I recall from the campaign trail, he was going the opposite direction, saying that we need to get out of all these wars. Why are we over there? And no surprise that Trump fans went along with it, but whether the whole party is going in that direction or not, but he definitely took his people or his supporters in a direction that normally Republicans are not thought to head, which is, get out of these wars. Usually Democrats give us the grief for wanting to never stop fighting.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I think one of the reasons President Trump did not have to do, we didn't have to do a lot of surgical strikes anywhere other than, I know we did the bombings in Syria back winter of 2017. We did some bombings of Syria. But here's the thing. They were afraid of President Trump's response. It's kind of like, how when President Reagan took over, the Soviets actually believed some of the like when President Reagan made that joke about bombing starts we start bombing Moscow in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes or something like that. They actually thought that they actually took stuff like that seriously. And when they heard when SDI Star Wars came out, they were kind of hey, this guy could block our missiles and he could nuke us and he'd win the nuke. You know, Mad is gone with SDI, and that's kind of what brought the Soviets to the bargaining table. And I think President Trump had the similar effect with a lot of these despots around the world, so to speak. You know, I wish he had taken a strong. I wish he had started a containment policy of the People's Republic of China, quite frankly, by putting ICBMs in. Putting ICBMs in Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, pointed at Beijing, and you know, then I think the Chicoms would be a little more reasonable when it comes to bargaining with us, you know. And I wish he would have continued SDI, frankly.
I'm not sure those countries would want our ICBMs in there.
I'm sure they would.
But
we can hit Beijing from here. We're good.
I know,
our missiles from South Dakota know where they're going.
No, but Brian, my point is this: you put them in Formosa or South Korea or Tokyo, you're under the umbrella. They don't have enough time to respond. So we could.
Well, I understand that, but we also have a submarine-based threat that can do that without pissing anybody off. It's like,
yeah, I know, but
f around and find out.
But remember, you've got the accuracy. The ICBMs that are ground-based are far more accurate than a submarine. You know, like you might.
I understand that, but you're not. This isn't darts. We're not trying to hit the tail on the donkey here. We're trying to blow stuff up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's 5 meters off if it's over Beijing. You know what I mean?
I agree. But my point is this. You got to show them that we mean business. And that's the only thing those people understand is brute force. You know, letting them build these little islands, claim South China Seas, claim islands that are actually belong to Japan.
Let's talk about what's really the worst part about China right now. And that's the fact you've got the Biden administration and all the left here, the Woko Haram on the left, which is excusing the Chinese genocide that's going on and aiding and abetting the Chinese genocide while they want to focus on, stupid stuff here about, microaggressions and stuff like that. There's a real genocide going on in China right now, and nobody in Washington, outside of a few Republicans, won't seem like they want to do anything about it.
Yeah. We never would have let, if the stuff that's happening in China right now is going on in the Soviet Union, I don't think we ever would have let the Soviets get away with what we're letting the Chicoms get away with, frankly.
I agree.
And also part of the problem is the Chicoms, there is no Andrei Sakharov, there's no Václav Havel, there is no Lech Walesa in China. Then again, if there was a Lech Walesa, they'd basically have him shot by now,
I don't know. I think the problem with China is different. I think that the fact that we can't lose China as an economic, let's say partnership, but we have so many materials and manufacturing items manufactured in China. So many companies use them, not just Apple, but all the semiconductors. Well, not all the semiconductors, but many semiconductors. They have a monopoly on all the rare earth materials. I mean, we can't, as much as people want to talk about it. We don't want to lose China. I mean, it would just hurt us economically if China boycotted us.
And this, by the way, is why China's economic policy is so smart for them and dangerous for us, given how many places they've invested in Nicaragua. They're talking about building the canal in Nicaragua. They have investments all over Africa, all over
by the way,
Asia.
Brian, the debates from the 1900s, they were building the Panama Canal.
Well, they wanted to build the Nicaragua Canal in 1883. But
and you know what they did to stop it, right? The postage stamp with a volcano, and good dude, Chicoms, put it in Nicaragua. But here's
I'm not sure they're worried about the volcano these days. But.
No, that's true. But here's the thing: China is also always one natural disaster away from third world status. If they get hit with tsunami that wipes out the Chinese coast, they're back to third world country status again. Frankly, and quite frankly,
I'd be more concerned about the Three Gorges Dam, quite frankly, because I know there's some structural issues with that.
Yeah, they've had issues with dams. I don't know about tsunamis. They're too far inland for tsunami, but they've had some dam issues.
I tell you, if we had a real CIA, we could actually, if John Dulles was running the CIA, we could take care of these dams, and it would look like an accident. Just saying.
Dwight, they're going to count your body count in mega deaths here by the end of the show. What are you doing?
Speaking about China, though, let me ask you this though. I mean, the because one of the things that is concerning me about China is what they've been able to do in Hong Kong. They got that security law, they've locked it down. Hong Kong they're wrapping that thing up. I mean, they are suppressing free speech and everything else. All that free Hong Kong movement, all that dissent is pretty much gone right now. You don't hear anything. They have forcibly taken control over that. And that is a problem. I mean, Hong Kong was a great country, and China taking this over. This is, I don't know, it sends shivers down my spine a little bit. The world ought to be taking notice of what's going on over there.
I mean, they've already
China one policy. It's China's way or no way. It's like, and the fact that so many corporations are in on it. It's you hear about Disney. You hear about
Disney.
people.
I mean, Disney should be ashamed of themselves.
China.
I don't know what the Brits expected when they handed over China, but they handed over to China. But I think this is exactly what we expected.
But here's the thing.
Yeah, I don't think any of us should be surprised at what happened. But it does make you wonder, as you say, it's like, exactly what were the British thinking when they agreed to hand this thing over?
I mean, look, we had a lease in Guantanamo. We never handed that over. I think our lease was supposed to end around 2000 something.
Well, technically, the lease was perpetual, and we still keep paying the bill on time. And
why do we pay? Are we really paying the Chi-Com? Are we still paying the Chi-Com?
We are still paying the Cubans, and they never cashed the check. Except for once. That was the one time Castro cashed the check, which is the way that we say that we have recognized that Cuba has recognized their claim over Gitmo. Now, if you want to talk about bad American treaties, we can talk about the Panama Canal Treaty. But
and here's the thing, also with China, here's the thing. There is no reason why the empire had to leave Hong Kong, quite frankly. And the empire should have held on to Hong Kong. It was the last vestige of the British Empire, like the Falkland Islands. I mean, look what they did for those Falkland Islands. There's nothing there. They sent that armada there. They could have, if they'd done half of that, they could have, in 1997, 98, when it was handed over, they would have been just fine if the Brits sent the armada down there.
1 billion Chinese, 30-odd some million Brits.
But this was this is before China was a real threat to us, per se.
Doesn't really matter all that much. The numbers game. It's kind of the same way with the Soviets in World War II. You could just throw them into the meat grinder, and you won't run out.
Joe Stalin did that.
I know, that's my point, and they won. So
now we won the Cold War.
Now Jeff mentioned about kind of just how much we rely on China for so many things. Now under President Trump, I mean, he'd had a lot of different things with the tariffs and all these actions that he took. And that actually, in some cases, that actually moved some manufacturing to other countries, Vietnam and other countries.
Vietnam,
Has that, with the change in administration, as far as we know, has that movement ended? Is it going to flow back to China now that the Democrats are in control?
I don't think it should. It might, but I tell you why it's not wise. I mean, the oil companies learned back in the late 60s, 70s, what happens when they nationalize your oil fields. Exxon learned that the hard way, as did many other oil manufacturers. China could wake up tomorrow and say, hey, we're going to nationalize your Apple, we're going to nationalize your factories here, and they're going to be ours now. And Apple will have to just basically cut and run, so to speak. Nothing they're going to do to, because they've kind of given aid and comfort to the enemy. And let's just say China is the evil empire. They are the great Satan right now. They need to be checked. The United States is the only counterweight to Chinese expansion in the Pacific Rim. We need to work with our allies there. The Chi-Coms need to be bottled up, quite frankly, and we need to make them uneasy and let them feel uncomfortable, so to speak. And I think if they get the Olympics, we should boycott those Olympics, frankly.
Well, they do have the Olympics next year, the Winter Olympics. And I know there's already been talk about whether or not. I know that the Canadians were having discussions about boycotting them, and I think that there has been some informal, not serious discussions about us boycotting them as well.
Well, Joe won't do that because that's his family's going to be there, make some money too.
Well, but Carter boycotted the Olympics in 1980, so you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, is there enough there to boycott the Olympics in Beijing, in 2022? If we get some more foreign nations to do that, then that will have some kind of an effect. I mean, we're already behind on the previous the Summer Olympics, right? Not even sure whether or not we're actually going to get there to Japan at this rate. But that still leaves Beijing. I mean, will things be right by 2022 enough anyway that people could go there? And after this kind of debacle here with the 2020 Olympics maybe occurring this year, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, could a boycott inflict much economic pain on China, or would it be more of a PR thing?
I mean, I don't think the boycotts of Olympics really inflict any economic pain. I
Well,
mean,
the
the IOC's already sold the rights. It's just a matter of tourism, and I don't.
But the Soviets did feel the impact of the 1980 Summer Olympics boycott. I mean, they did not get they did not get the hard currency from Western European American tourists who would have gone there. That was kind of part of the beginning of the end. That's kind of like because the Soviets, nobody wanted the ruble, and they needed these foreign currencies like the dollars and drachmas and Deutschmarks and the sterling to prop up the Soviet economy, and they didn't get that, and that kind of that was kind of probably the first domino to the demise of the Soviet Empire, frankly.
Well, Dwight, I think the point Don was trying to make is that if you look ahead to 2022, I mean, we might still be in a situation where you won't have tourists going to Beijing to go see the Olympics. So even if you did boycott the Olympics, that money wasn't going to go there anyway.
True.
I mean, I'm sure those TV deals and those kind of things are already signed. So regardless of whether we participate or not, those will still be on air.
Money.
Yeah.
Hey, Don.
Those networks are already making money off of streaming now, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don, you mentioned that we're really not hearing as much in the news about the resistance in Hong Kong and pushback. Do you think, or I'm open this up to anybody, but do you guys think that there's still that the more that China really puts dampers everything, really gets just more crazy as
I don't know. I kind of see it almost like North Korea. It's like it's obviously better economically off, but it's such a restrictive regime that they have a system and a mentality of of big brotherhood, like everyone's watching. They've been restricted and censored, and even I'm sure the shadow of Tiananmen Square still lives with them. So it's like these kind of things are just like they're cultural now. It's not even like the government has to enforce these. It's like a built-in indoctrination.
Based on the stories I've been reading too about what's going on in Hong Kong, it's just that they've been such an effective job at quashing dissent that anybody even remotely saying something like that was whisked away and is never heard from again, kind of a thing like that.
Yeah.
That it has really kind of, there's probably, like anything else, there's always probably going to be kind of an underground movement, but it's hard for me to imagine the masses of people taking to the streets as they did before in Hong Kong, that we will see that again in the near future, if ever, because China has really they've tightened the screws. This time that was a huge problem for them. They couldn't handle those, and they pushed through that law. They've gotten control now, and I think it'll take a while before I think those that were involved in that movement, the Free Hong Kong movement, to figure out how they can possibly find a way out of that situation and go, bring some freedom back to the surface again. This is going to be a tough one. All right,
but yeah.
I was just gonna say it might. I mean,
Brian, is something taken off in your?
I was gonna say, are we gonna check that somewhere?
What's that?
Or is that somebody flush a toilet? What was that?
What's that? No. I'm just trying to figure out why Facebook's not letting us invite people to the watch parties. That's what I was trying to do. Anyways, so
we get some. I live near an air park. I don't get that noise.
You is your friend.
You were saying, Chris?
I was just gonna kind of wrap up by saying, it might be a while. It might be a while till we get people who, like Don's saying, people are just who were really involved in the resistance just kind of totally disappeared. It might be a while till anybody who really knows a lot about what's going on behind the scenes kind of gets out, escapes, and is able to get over here to, well, wherever, Europe, US, and is able to kind of really expose what China has been doing with these people and any little hint of resistance. So yeah, but that could be years till somebody's able to kind of finally, be the whistleblower on that.
Right, and because they control and they pretty much shut down, access to social media to a large extent, you're not going to have the kind of the Arab Spring effect of people taking to Twitter and things like that and doing that. China doesn't allow you to do that kind of stuff. So
Well, and let's all remember the Arab Spring was basically nothing more than the Arab Fall, because all of those governments were replaced by radical Islamic regimes. Look at Egypt. When Barack Obama basically decided he'd pull the carpet out from underneath our friend Mubarak, and look what happened to in Egypt after that. But this is a real problem, China. It is basically, we really need to have more folks involved. I mean, where are the world leaders condemning China for this? Where are they? Where are these people? Is what I like to know. Where are the Margaret Thatchers of our time? Where are the Ronald Reagans to condemn this sort of stuff? President Reagan condemned the Soviets when they shot down KLM airplane that was shot down by Soviets. I think if the Chinese shot down a Korean airline today, nobody would care. Frankly, I don't think they'd even give it any ink in the papers. Frankly.
All right, let's move on to something that's going on. I didn't actually check to see if the House has voted on the relief bill. They were supposed to vote today, so they've been sticking to their guns in the House about this 1.9 trillion package for COVID relief, for which as you start to look at it, you're like, exactly what part of this is going to COVID relief that actually makes it's a real tie to COVID, right? You've got money for Amtrak, you've got money to bail out pension funds, you've got money for schools that aren't even tied to them reopening. And there's just a litany of things like this. Like, it's been estimated, by some people said it's only 5%, others said it's been 10% is COVID related. But no one seems to be really complaining about it, but just a handful of people, the liberals, are trying to push this through. But the other part of that too is that they also wanted that $15 minimum wage, which got shot down by the Senate parliamentarian. So the Democrats have got, looks like Biden's not going to be able to get that through. But what's the chances? What are the chances that this package, it'll probably pass the House, probably just on party line vote, but when it gets to the Senate, I don't see how this gets through.
Everything you need to know about the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill is the fact that if you give the $1,400 they say they want to give to every man, woman, and child in the country, you only come up with $462 billion, which makes $1.4 trillion of debt, which incidentally is going to be bought by China. That's going to fund all of this other poppycock, Don, that you mentioned. I mean, it's not a bill about relief. It's certainly not a bill about relieving the taxpayers. It's just another way for the Democrats to start, writing checks to special interests and keeping them happy. And the same cycle we always expect from Democrats in Congress.
It's basically a blue state bailout for poorly managed states like New York, Illinois, California to get bailed out by you and me, the taxpayer. Some people would say we should have extended the wall, keeping Californians in California, frankly.
I mean, they're giving there's $350 billion, I think, for the states for COVID relief, but you notice how, what was it, California? Didn't they just approve like $6 billion of COVID relief aid for their residents? But a lot of it was targeted at like illegal aliens.
Yeah.
To me, my first thought was just like, okay, so it looks like California was already counting on getting some of that money, and they're going to redirect some of that money they're going to get from us to these illegal aliens.
Yeah.
But don't forget, I mean, California's got billions of dollars of budget deficits too. I don't know where they're getting $6 billion to fund this when they're anticipating $7 billion yearly deficits by the budget year 2023.
Right. That's
no wonder these people are going to Texas.
Yeah, and
that's the other thing. I mean, you're right. I mean, they're looking at these things to spend all this money, even though they complain. On the other hand, it's like, well, COVID has decimated our state economy, but
Yeah.
we're going to go and do that, and then they want to increase taxes. They want to, all these kinds of things.
Well, but Don,
Here's the
what
thing
was-
I always that I love about the Californians are moving to Texas, and Chris, you'll appreciate this. Remind me of all the Baltimore County residents who moved to Carroll County. How they talk about how much they want to leave Baltimore County and they want to move to Carroll County, and then they want Carroll County to be just like the Baltimore County they left. That's what worries me about Texas long term.
And Brian, Montgomery County folks, went to Howard County, and now Howard County started to look like Montgomery County again.
Well, no, they are going to Frederick County too.
Yeah,
What's going on there?
Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say, yeah, Howard's all going to Frederick, and as far as I'm concerned, they can keep heading a little bit west over there. But yeah, Frederick County has become the new Howard.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The problem, I think Neil Bortz had a great idea. People, I was taking a task when I said this, but it's a little funny. Neil Bortz says when people move to Florida, he goes, if you come down the 95 corridor, you can't vote for 20 years. If you come down from the down the Midwest, you can't vote for 10 years. Why? Because you need to get adjusted and become a Florida. It's kind of like what I hate to say. It's kind of like when immigrants come to America. They learn English. We don't let them vote right away, right off the boat. Although Joe Biden's about to change that also, from what I understand. But you gotta get acclimated with the climate, the norms, the traditions and the cultures of where you're going. And that's why we have, I think it was 5 years to become a U.S. citizen if you're an immigrant that comes here legally with proper papers and so on.
I know that a lot of people move to Florida. They have to wait 20 years to vote. They're never going to get the vote.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either, quite frankly. Somebody, if a liberal
You retire in New York at 65, you move to Florida, you got to wait 20 years. Yeah,
There's
boy.
a reason they call Florida death's waiting room,
Hey, but here's the thing: if Wokey McWokey from Maryland, who moves down to
That's so many people.
they can't, and if they can't vote, I'm fine with that because Brevard County is a very red county. All the levers of power controlled by great Republicans, and something. If Maryland Democrats who move down there can't vote for the rest of their life, that's fine. That's fine.
But you guys, I guess it was Brian. You guys, making a good point here though too. Is that the concern about people who flee California for Texas, just like they've been moving around this state or they leave the state, they go somewhere else, and then they expect the place they move to be like the place they left on a liberal political scale. That is a concern that we should have because Californians, as they leave, they go to Texas, they go to Arizona, they go to Utah, and it starts changing the mix, the voter mix.
Don, why don't they go to Oregon or Washington where they're culturally the same? Why don't they go there? They ruined Nevada, all the California.
Well, a lot of people want to leave that whole sector. But part of it is it's the taxes, right? They love the politics, but the taxes and all the other regulations.
But how do they not?
They go somewhere else.
But how do these people not associate them together? I mean, you're saying that the taxes and the politics, they love the politics, not the taxes, but it's the politicians they keep electing that keep putting these taxes.
I'm sorry, you want the American electorate to be logical?
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Didn't Rush Limbaugh call them low information voters kind of a thing?
And you see what's happened in Arizona. Arizona's got the toxic mix of all of those voters, those Democrats from California moving to Arizona, and an Arizona Republican Party that is so bonkers crazy right now that they can't win anything. It's just this toxic mix for Arizona. They're gonna. Here's my prediction. Here's my master lock prediction. Arizona will elect a Democratic governor in 2022.
No, I don't think so. I will respectfully disagree.
I hope not. That's my opinion.
Because Arizonans are a little different.
That'll just be the total collapse of statewide GOP elected officials in Arizona. I mean, they've lost everything else at this point.
There is here. This may offend some
before they get rewarded by being reelected.
Yeah, and Kelly Ward will get reelected with an even bigger majority.
But no, here's something. People may not like this, but Doug Ducey, if he were to run for U.S. Senate, he could win that Senate seat there. J.D. Hayworth could make a not to come back, and he could pick off the.
There's a blast in the past.
Oh
he
my
could
God!
win the governorship. Again, J.D. Hayworth could come back. He could actually be governor. He could be the other, he could be a senator from Arizona. Ben Quayle can move up to the Senate.
The problem with all of this is the fact that you have this infrastructure in Arizona, the Arizona GOP, which is just collapsing upon itself.
But Brian, remember when the Maryland GOP collapsed on itself? And
okay, but
nobody
people didn't get reelected. And Kelly Ward did get reelected, even if she's not allowing the votes to be examined, which is hilarious to me. But, it's just, Arizona is a purple state. It's a competitive state. It's not like when Maryland collapsed. Nationally, nobody cared because,
it's just Maryland.
What's that?
It's just Maryland.
Well,
Maryland. We're not a Republican state, so the
exactly.
Who cares, as you're saying?
Yeah.
It's like Arizona. The Oregon GOP is basically run by John Bircher remnants these days. Nobody cares, but Arizona, that's a problem.
I fear Arizona. I don't think Arizona is going to become Colorado. Also, I think Colorado may swing back in our column at some point in the next 20 years.
Okay, well, that's a pretty broad swath of time there.
20 years. I'm giving 20 years. Colorado will be red once more. Look, we elected Cory Carter. Colorado used to have a reliable Republican senator there. We had Nighthorse Campbell, Hank Brown. I got a funny Hank Brown story for everyone, if anyone over here is that.
Wasn't Nighthorse Campbell a Democrat before that?
He was.
Yes, he was. And then because the Democrat Party left him because they wouldn't support the balanced budget amendment. And then he came over and joined the family. And, he didn't just join the family as in, Connie Morell became a Republican, but she still was a Democrat at heart. He became a Republican at heart. He didn't hey, I've got an R next to my name, but I still believe all the wacky stuff I did before when I was a Democrat. Connie Morell she became a Republican, but she still believed all the wacky lefty things she believed when she was a Democrat.
Yeah, but for Arizona and these other states, they need to have good party infrastructure in there, and that's what Arizona is really lacking. It's a mess in Arizona, and they have to watch out for that. Look, I've got a bunch of relatives in Utah, and so we kind of watch what's happening over there. But Utah, for a long time, because housing was cheap, lower taxes, that type of thing like that. That was drawing a lot of Californians, a lot of people from Washington, Oregon in there, and it starts to change the mix a little bit. It's still, because the state is so Republican, it is staying Republican for a while, but those they keep moving in there, and the things are changing, because Salt Lake itself, that Salt Lake County area, that is a very liberal area. And if it expands, it's going to be a problem for the GOP long term. But right in the short term, they're going to be okay. But you have to watch out for that. But I always find it interesting that all these liberal Democrats and people are tired of the high taxes and stuff like that. They want to move to red states.
Yep.
Right.
Look what happened to Virginia, Don. When I was working for AIM, Virginia was a reliable Republican. They had 3 Northern Virginia Republican congressmen at one point when I was. They had Stan Paris, they had Frank Wolf, I can't think of the other guy, but they had 3 Northern Virginia Republicans. John Warner, who was a marginal Republican, but he was a Republican, and now look at Virginia.
Tom Davis a good Republican, or
what's that?
Tom Davis.
Yeah, Tom Davis. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Tom Davis. But Tom Davis, I think, was not. I don't think he was there when Stan Paris and Frank Wolf, but there was a Republican before Tom Davis, I believe. Well, Tom Davis was a county executive.
A lot of Republicans, they held a lot of those seats for a long period of time.
Yeah, even in the state house, and they've got to make a little quick.
But that's another problem. I think we've mentioned this before. The Virginia GOP, they're also a mess.
Yeah,
I wrote about this week. Their convention. First off, the rules in Virginia about whether or not they're giving you the choice to pick a primary or a convention or a canvas, and it basically, depending on which clique is in charge at this moment in time, is goofy to start with. And then this week they come out with this, well, let's have a convention, but let's do it in the parking lot at Liberty University, but let's announce it before we actually have an agreement with Liberty University. I've said this for a couple of years now. I never thought I would live to see the day where the Maryland Republican Party is a better organized, more well-oiled machine than the Republican Party of Virginia. And here we are.
And that credit goes all to Dirk Hare, frankly. Dirk Hare,
quite a lot of it, yeah.
Has right the ship, and we've been good.
I mean, I've been to several, Virginia GOP conventions over the
They
years.
used to be great, remember?
They're quite the conservative love fest, type of thing like that.
I mean, Brian, do you remember 2000?
Part of the problem about trying to nominate somebody and get that through the convention process is that I think it was when they were trying to select that lieutenant governor candidate. And
E.W. Jackson.
That thing went on all day. I mean, most of the delegates had left by the time they finally got around to it. They had gone to like 5 rounds of voting.
Yeah.
And now they're planning to do this drive-through in the parking lot at Liberty University and broadcast speeches on FM radio. But they're going to do it by everybody's got to drive in to drop their ballot off and then leave because they're making them do ranked choice voting, which Republicans supposedly hate ranked choice voting, but we're going to pick a primary candidate. I mean, it's nuts. It's insane. It's no way to run a rodeo.
Shoot, I mean, ranked choice voting. I mean, if the Republicans support it there, I mean, Democrats can easily make a case saying, we want to make this statewide.
Exactly.
The Virginia GOP actually used it.
Yeah.
Against it. That is so insane.
Yeah.
Yep. And here's the other thing about Northern Virginia. Let me tell you, Governor Allen was on our sister show Direct Line on Wednesday, and he made a very good case. A primary is the way to go. You get more people involved. The way when you do these conventions, like having your insiders club. I mean,
it becomes pay to play almost. You have to pay to show up to the convention.
And Virginia is a much bigger state than Maryland is. Driving from Northern Virginia to say Lynchburg, it's not an easy drive.
Or Virginia Beach, or any of these other places.
It's not like we go to Ocean City. We go there and drop our head. We're there. Tell that to people in Allegheny County.
But still, the point is that when we go to Ocean City,
I'd rather drive to Ocean City than do a drive-in convention any day. So
yeah, it's like
I'll agree with you, Dwight.
If you go to Ocean City, though, for our conventions, we're not picking nominees. It's not like it's the entire party has to come there to pick somebody. It's
Brian. Do you remember the post 2010 era where we had all the Maryland people rush off to, I think the RPV convention was in Harrisonburg or Richmond, and you had all these people that ran out there to go watch their convention, and they were praising, and then you had some intellectuals that came out and said, we should pick our nominees.
Don Murphy is the only person I know of who keeps talking about that, and I think that's because that's why he's a weed lobbyist now. God love Don.
There are actually a few others that also believe that. Stuff.
It's a battle royal at that point. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like that would give the people on this call more influence in the nominating process. But is that?
By the way, Brian, here's the other thing. If we did that, Larry Hogan never would have been our nominee. You and I both know.
Charles Lawler would have been the nominee.
Yeah, we would have lost, and that would have been it.
I 100% agree with you.
Can we just ban Charles Lawler from the show? I mean, not ever mention him.
Heard his name twice this month.
Yeesh. Okay. I do want to ask this. So we're the Biden administration, the Senate is still trying to go through, and they're trying to wrap up some of the last of the Biden nominations for the cabinet and things like that. But one of the things is that the OMB pick, Neera Tanden, she's in big trouble. I don't understand
Democrats.
what drove Biden to nominate her. I mean, she deleted about 1,000 tweets, that she had issued before that had attacked, Mitch McConnell and lots of Republicans and things like even Bernie Sanders. So you have Manchin basically saying, he already tipped the scales. He said he wasn't going to vote for her. I think the Republicans are all going to stay in line. So they've pulled back the nomination right now for the committees. But the White House is standing behind her. But I don't know. I mean, I think the smarter strategy for the administration would be to pick someone else and move on, cut your losses now.
Hey, Don, here's a question. Why are we, if you remember when President Trump, we had a Republican Senate and they were still holding up our nominees. Why are we not holding up these Biden nominees? Eye for an eye, limb for limb, hold up for a hold up, frankly. Why are we not sandbagging some of the way Chucky Schumer used to do when he was in the minority? He did that to a number of people we all know that wanted a presidential appointment. I mean, they did it to Miguel Estrada when we had the Senate and the House. I mean, this is what Democrats do. Why are we not Why are we not doing the exact same stuff?
Well, to what end, Dwight?
What's that?
to what end? I mean,
Well, look,
we're just
I
going
would
to hold
love
up
to.
the nominations just because, or because there's actually
Yes, just because.
ideological
Yeah, no,
differences.
just because I want to make Joe Biden's term as president as unpleasant as possible for him. That's why I think we should be holding up these things. We should be slowing things down to a crawl so he can't implement his agenda. If we can prevent him from getting some cabinet positions in to slow down his agenda, by all means, let's do it. Let's slow down that juggernaut, which is the Biden administration.
I've never seen the Republicans ever doing a very good job at this kind
No,
of
they haven't.
stuff.
That's the problem. They don't.
They tend to play nice on this, where the Democrats never do.
No, they never do.
But at
And
least,
when
but at
will they
least
learn?
for now, at least during the hearings, for those that are paying attention to them, is at least they are calling attention to some of the things. Is Javier Becerra, is he really qualified to take that position? Is Merrick Garland, how does he stand on certain positions? Kind of makes you wonder. Merrick Garland, it's like, boy, if we'd had Supreme Court, hearings for him, it's like, would he have answered the same way, and would he have actually gotten through? Because I don't know. I'm definitely a lot more leery about him now than I was before.
I really would have loved to have blocked Merrick Garland, frankly. I know, because and let's call it what it is. It's going to be payback for what they did. Just like we're going to get their vice president like they got ours years ago. And we're going to, it's payback, quite frankly. We should be slowing them down. President Trump was not able to implement his agenda because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, and they basically sandbagged and blocked a lot of our key appointees. I mean, they wouldn't even give hearings to some of our key cabinet positions. They were trying to block and prevent from the president having an effective cabinet so he could conduct business. And we should be doing the same to Joe Biden. There is no reason why Mitch McConnell and the Republicans have to play nicey with the Democrats. They are the enemy. They are the villains. They are the bad guys. They are the Legion of Doom, while we are the Justice Society.
I'm still amused. I know it's been said in the media, but I still amuses me that after 4 years of Trump, Republicans in the Senate are fighting over nasty tweets.
Yeah.
Mean tweets.
I mean, and I think ultimately, Dwight, that's kind of why I have an issue with your strategy, is because, just because the Senate Democrats want to, act like petulant children instead of statesmen and stateswomen doesn't mean that we should.
Yeah, so we're going to let Joe Biden move forward his lefty agenda.
Okay, but there's a difference between voting for something and being a dick about it. I mean, there's just there's a difference. I mean,
okay. Let's go back to. Do you remember the 2011 spring convention?
Parts of it.
When we switched from one man, one vote to LCD voting.
Oh yeah, that was a good time. That was fun.
But did you notice that our county, every time we had a vote, we to slow down the process, we would call for. And that's why we were there to.
Yeah, there's a difference though between using parliamentary tactics and just being mean. I mean, that's not what you're doing. Is not mean. That is making use of all available.
I'm sure if you ask some of the people, other non-Montgomery County folks, they said we were being mean.
That's because everybody else wanted to go to secrets.
Well, I wasn't there, Dwight. Did you all force a roll call vote for everything?
Everything, yes. We were there until 5 o'clock. And what's funny is
I left.
People they came to break down the room while we're in the middle. And so that was,
I think I'd made
Jeff
it home by the time I found out what the final decision was.
Oh, did you not stay for the whole convention, Don?
No, I wasn't. I'm like, I looked at this thing. I said, we're not going to end anywhere soon. And I am not, for a 3-hour plus drive, I am not staying here till 5 o'clock.
Yeah, the only other time I remember it being that bad was the 2013 convention where we had the election for the party chair vacancy. And they came.
That was the great Griffith way for debates. I remember.
I still should have punched him in the face, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Right, Dwight, we're time for final thoughts, Dwight.
Oh yes. Oh wow. Time flies when you're having fun, everyone.
That's right.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Brian, Andy, Rooney, Griffith. We'll start with you.
There's a lot of things.
Do it in your Andy Rooney impression.
You know what I've been thinking about? Bulls. Look, obviously I have issues with Trumpism. I have issues with President Trump. I have more issue with the golden Trump statue at CPAC. I don't know if people read the Old Testament, but worshiping golden idols is bad, and it doesn't end well. So, you can support the President Donald Trump. You can support what he stands for. Let's not worship the golden bull. Thank you.
Final thoughts, Jeff Thornton.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I know that all this infighting is going to happen both with the Senate, the House, stuff like that. I guess what I see, what we need to do is to get the party back on track is to, again, it's kind of like a grassroots effort. So let's look at the constituents, look to see what the issues are, especially in this time. I mean, our strong base is the conservative, like the working class. Really look to see what they need. Listen to them, see what we can do to get small businesses back on their feet. Whether it's through tax incentives or check protection programs or any kind of assistance we can give. I think that really would help both the economy as a whole and the working class in particular. So, I hate where all these funds get distributed to these mega corporations and the people that really don't struggle. I think it's the middle class, the working class that really need, and not just the individual workers, but the small businesses that support them. So I'm just hoping that more support is going to be rolled out to them, and that as Republicans we can capitalize on that base and kind of just regain I think some ground, help them see that there is a path forward. So.
Final thoughts, Chris Tomlinson.
Dwight, I was hoping that your Montgomery County educator who got caught on Zoom would get brought up here. Doing doing a little business. My final thought is I learned something new this week that apparently, you can do what he did and get caught on Zoom in front of children, and apparently it's not illegal, nor do you lose your job. So
hey, look,
good times in Montgomery County.
Hey, MCPS doesn't even fire people that are arrested for drug paraphernalia sales and selling drugs. They just get moved to another school to go teach.
That school's about 3 miles away from my house.
Oh, you know about that school, yeah?
Shady Grove or something.
Yeah, Shady Grove. That's about 3 miles away from my house.
The Shady. Yeah, he puts the Shady in Shady Grove.
That was too easy.
Final thoughts, Don Irvine.
Yeah, I guess with the Democrats and with all of this stuff, and as we're trying to battle our way out of all these COVID restrictions and everything like that. Washington Post had an article about the COVID bankruptcies are beginning to surface more and more. But what tends to be left out on this media narrative is just that who's responsible for a lot of these bankruptcies for these businesses is these Democrat politicians that have shut down the states, that won't reopen and let the businesses reopen, let them rehire people. Why do we have, personal bankrupt? All the domino effect of this is that, if they would just go ahead and open up, Florida we've seen can be a success case. New York and other bigger states, they need to follow that. Ron DeSantis, we talked about this a little bit last week too, is that he's shown that you can do this and you can do it pretty safely and you can thrive and survive with this. Cuomo and a lot of these other politicians need to learn this lesson and let people get back to work, let the businesses operate, and let's get our economy back on track the way it needs to be.
Yeah, and on that note, Fry's Electronic yesterday announced they're shutting down all the stores in bankruptcy as well. And folks like Baby Doc Cuomo, he still has his jet gas to take him to Montreal. It's where he can live off in exile, when he's finally deposed in the great state of New York, Anybody get that reference out there? Maybe Brian and Jeff and myself,
All right, just
anyways,
final
thoughts, Jason Trott.
I thought Dwight was going to be able to bring up during the episode, but I'll talk about it now. There's a lot of bills coming out of Annapolis that really seem targeted at Republicans at the moment. One of them is HB, I think 335, which changes, in short, it makes it so Dwight can't run for county executive of Montgomery County, and also his position on the Central Committee. And I can see their arguments about why it's good. But but I don't really like the idea of a Baltimore City delegate deciding on who we get to elect as our party leadership. And I could go back and forth, and it's really to punish one central committee from one city in Maryland for on the
Is this
Democratic
an ethically
side.
challenged city in Maryland?
Yes, it is, Dwight. Yes, it is. And
And has it been run by the same party for like 50 plus years?
it has, and the whole bill is to target one delegate who voted on herself to appoint herself. You can see when there's one delegate from District 45 voting with a bunch of Republicans no on the bill, you can tell who the bill's targeted at. So you have that, and then you have another bill in places like St. Mary's County and Garrett County that changes the way that we elect county commissioners in those counties, all Republican counties with all Republican commissioners. I've never seen a Montgomery County Democrat care about what goes on in Garrett County until the other day when they said they're diluting the minority vote by having all residents of the county vote on all county commissioners.
And don't get me wrong, I kind of agree with the principle of the bill that those commissioners should be elected by district, but it is in no way, shape, or form something that the state should dictate down to the county level. When Carroll County did this, it was handled, but Carroll County handled it as a local bill. It was originated from Carroll County. The fact that these Democrats want to stick it to our other counties and do it that way is just not the appropriate use of government. And that's
right.
So I agree with the principle. This execution sucks.
4 out of the 5 counties submitted testimony. They all voted to not support the bill, and they all submitted that against it, but they're still ramming it through anyway.
And okay, my final thoughts. I got a couple actually. First, final thought, Jason. Excellent point on the bill. It's a horrible bill, put together by a bunch of corrupt Democrats. It'd have been nice if they'd have been this careful about their mayor when she was her Healthy Holly books. But
point.
anyways, it is Baltimore City. But my final thought is number one is it is almost the start of Orioles magic. Spring training has already started, and go Orioles! This is their year. I can feel it.
Okay, let's not get carried away.
There's something magic in the air,
Who thinks they're going to win more than 50 games?
I got more than 50. Not more than 60, though.
Actually, I said 60. I think they'll win 62 games. 62 games this year. It's a rebuilding year for the Orioles. Okay, that's just.
They're going to be a rebuilding decade the way they're done.
Yeah, like the Redskins, right? The Redskins had a rebuilding decade.
The Orioles will have a winning record in 2025.
Dwight?
The Redskins.
Who?
Oh yes. Oh, that's right. They are no
Washington
longer
football team, which is still going to be the Washington football team for another year.
Yeah.
Why
And then after that, they'll be the Washington Amazon Prime.
And as we know, Maryland really only has one football team as soon as the Washington fill-in-the-blanks move to Virginia anyway.
Are they moving to Virginia? What are we going to do with that monster?
Well, let's see. If Jeff Bezos buys the Redskins, it's a Washington football team, and moves and say Jeff Bezos already owns a significant chunk of Alexandria, Virginia at the National Landing Site, which incidentally is on the place where, which was considered for Jack Kent Cooke Stadium when it was built in 1996, I can do the math and see where this is going. That team will be in Virginia by the end of the decade.
Yeah, and so what? I mean, they sucked anyway.
Just move it to Carroll County. They need some economic stimulus.
And that'd be a great place for
move Ravens training camp back to Carroll County. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Actually, move the Bay Sox to Carroll County.
You just move everything to Carroll County, and then they'll start voting blue like the rest of the state.
That is true.
Exactly. Yeah, we're back to where we started.
Yeah, and my other final thoughts is I do want to point out, when I like to point out when politicians do something good and honorable, and I've got nothing this week to point out though, but I am looking. I think I'm going to start doing as a regular final thoughts thing. When somebody in elected office does something right or does the right thing, as Spike Lee would say, I will point them out. So if you guys know if anybody's doing the right thing, let me know. I would be. Actually, no, Kathy Shalega. She gets my award this week.
I'll give a shout out to Nathan Volke, my county councilman.
There you go. 2 great elected officials doing the right thing. I mean, Kathy Shalega just sent out the alert on really 3 or 4 really bad bills. One being the painter's bill. The other is the water. What is it? The painter's bill, and then there's another one on giving cash to illegal aliens. That's another bill. And then there's the whistleblower bill, which that one I didn't read enough about. But Jason, you probably know more about that bill than I do, anyways. They're all bad bills at the end of the day.
You know, we just need less bills in general coming out of Annapolis. They should, if they took session off because of the pandemic, I would have been just fine.
I've always said they meet 89 days too many.
Yep.
In Annapolis.
Come in, pass the budget, and you can go home. Thanks.
Yep. And thank you everyone for watching today. Thank you, Facebook, for screwing everyone over. Oh, by the way, thoughts and prayers to Senator Bob Dole. He's been diagnosed with lung cancer. Bob Dole was a great American. Bob Dole ran a basically valiant campaign in 1996 for president. And that was actually that was the second GOP convention I ever attended, and that was a great convention in San Diego. Back when Republicans had a governor in California and a Republican mayor in San Diego. It's a great, Bob Dole is a great American, and thoughts and prayers go out to Bob Dole. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you guys next week, and hopefully Facebook will fix the way I can invite people to our watch party so we can actually invite people there. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right, see ya.